Y'all, welcome. We're going to try to touch on some of the subjects since the briefing this morning at 11. At that time, as you know, the storm was very much still active in Mississippi. Winds had about peaked at that point, and we thought that the crest of the storm surge would be occurring very shortly thereafter, which it did. However, if you got over to Hancock County around Lake Bourne, as the storm went by and we had the storm winds moving from south to north, then we had a resurgence of water being pushed up out of the Gulf, and you actually had some areas where water continued to rise, not because of the storm surge, but because of the direction of the winds. Hancock County has received significant flooding damage, obviously in flood-prone areas, and in some other areas, particularly close to the beach. A lot of water at Pearlington. We do think there is limited structural damage due to wind, but there are going to be a lot of places that are damaged by water. Many homes have been elevated according to the flood advisory maps after Katrina. Those are generally going to be well out of the water, but there are those that were elevated according to pre-Katrina standards, and some of them are going to be flooded. The Jordan River in Hancock County rose about 10 feet, had about 10 feet of flooding. Homes rebuilt after the storm, after Katrina, that were built higher avoided damage. Some homes got flood damage, but it doesn't look like it's significant. We did have some rescues in that area, as we talked about earlier. We believe that several homes received flood damage at Pearlington, and when I say we believe, and as I mentioned earlier, we don't think there's that much structural damage. One of the reasons I put it that way is you can't get in there by road right now. That we've had teams that have gone in by boat, both local law enforcement teams, National Guard teams, state law enforcement teams that have gone in, but it all is by boat at this stage, and we really won't know how much damage there is in Pearlington until the water recedes. Significant flood damage in Waveland, probably seen it on television. Best reports, best estimates, we have a couple of hundred homes damaged in Waveland. A lot of 90 has been underwater in Harrison County as well as in Hancock County. The port of Gulfport did a very good job of preparing. All the containers were taken out of the port. All of the movable equipment was taken out of the port. Power is out there right now, but we don't anticipate there's any significant damage at the port or at Northrop Grumman or at Chevron. Some of the areas on the Back Bay have received some flooding. We know, for instance, that in the Bayou View area of Gulfport that some homes have been flooded. You will see if you're down there, there is a significant uniformed local police, local sheriff department, local highway patrol. We'll again have 200 state law enforcement on the ground tonight down there. You should know that the coast local governments have uniformly called a curfew from 6 o'clock till 6 o'clock in the morning. We have not had any reports of looting, and we don't have any reports of any arrests on the coast. I've talked about the western side. There certainly has been flooding in Pascagoula, and we believe there's been flooding in some low areas of Moss Point. There are reports of flooding in East Biloxi, including in a couple of the casinos, which those reports have been mixed. One of them said that there was water in the lobby of one of the hotels, and a subsequent report said no, there was water on the first floor of the parking lot of that hotel. We don't know, but suffice it to say, east of Calumet toward Point Cadet and East Biloxi, there are low areas which clearly have flooded. That we don't have first-hand reports, but there's no question that that's happened. The next place that everybody needs to be really careful is Southwest Mississippi. We have already had a report of a weather-related automobile accident in which 2 firemen in Lincoln County were injured. We're told that the injuries are not life-threatening, but that the accident was caused by the storm. There also is a report of a fatality in an automobile accident in Pike County, and where that report attributes the accident to be caused by the storm. Straight line winds and tornadoes are likely in Southwest Mississippi later this evening and tomorrow, as that's where the storm is going. The chances for straight line winds on the coast and in southeast Mississippi are declining. However, there's still bands being thrown off by the storm that could produce tornadoes and winds as we associate with thunderstorms. We're told by the Weather Service to anticipate 4 to 12 inches more rain. Okay? That's particularly going to be the case south and west and further west as we go along, but that some areas in Mississippi may get as much as 12 inches of additional rain. The latest reports we have, Mississippi Power reported about an hour ago they had 22,000 customers without power. Singing River Power in George and Jackson counties reported about 600 customers without power. Coast Electric reported about 37,000 customers without power, including 14,000 in Hancock County, 9,500 in Pearl River County. Coast Electric anticipates they will have about 16,000 customers that will not have power by dark tonight. The other electric power associations in the southern part of the state report about 5,000 customers without power. Those seem mostly to be in southwest Mississippi, and Entergy reports almost 20,000 customers without power, primarily in Pike and Lincoln counties. Y'all have asked questions about shelters. Currently, we have 107 shelters open for regular population. About 14,251 are in those. Evacuees are being served by those shelters. We have additionally 3 special needs shelters that are open. About half of the 237 people in those special needs shelters are from Louisiana. About half are from Mississippi. The health department reports they're in good shape there. They have a backup shelter waiting if they run out of capacity at the special needs shelter at Hines Community College, which is open as we speak. We've talked about the curfew. We anticipate that there will be distribution starting tomorrow of food, water, and ice in the 3 coast counties and in Pearl River County. Probably will not start until the afternoon, and we're still holding decisions depending on what happens in southwest Mississippi tonight and in the morning. I was asked earlier, when should people anticipate going home? For people that live on the coast, we strongly urge that you not try to go home tomorrow. There's a curfew in effect tonight, so you definitely should not try to go home tonight during the curfew. We do not know with certainty all the areas that have flooding. We don't know the extent of damage to roads, where you have what customers have electricity and what customers don't. So we urge the public, do not go home tomorrow. Wait till Wednesday. Check with the local officials in your county before you go home. One of the reasons that we have deployed so much armed, uniformed manpower is to protect private property. So far, that's worked. We're going to keep that presence there so that the people will not feel like they got to rush back, because you may rush back to get into something that's flooded, you can't get to because of the road, there's no electricity, and that doesn't serve any positive purpose. The Secretary of the Commissioner of Insurance is here. I want to say, for the taxpayers of the United States, when this storm occurred, we had 2.5 times more flood insurance policies on the coast than when Katrina. That was part of the deliberate policy decision we made in an agreement with the federal government. 54,217 flood insurance policies in effect for Hancock, Harrison, Jackson, and Pearl River counties, which means that every person, family that participated in the homeowner grant program is insured, and the taxpayers are not going to have to pay for fixing their houses. Secondly, as a part of our agreement with the state legislature, we imposed very strong, much stronger building codes in the coast counties, and you're going to see that these building codes are going to mean that there's a lot less damage done, particularly from wind. The reports we have now cite very little damage from wind. I want to make y'all aware of that. I want to give Senator Wicker a second to make some comments, and then while he's doing that, I'm going to see who back here needs to make comments. Senator.
Well, the governor has made a very comprehensive report. Let me say, Gail and I have spent the better part of the day on the phone with elected officials on the coast. And starting with Jackson County, I can report that there is a palpable sense of relief in Jackson County. The governor is right. There was a small amount of street flooding in Pascagoula and Ocean Springs. We're already hearing some suggestions about how we can do this better next time, and we appreciate that. The mayor of Gulfport, Mayor Ward, believes that a tornado hit in Gulfport today, and that there's some damage from that. Still, even in the western municipalities of Harrison County, again, there's a feeling that we dodged the bullet there, and as the governor said, no structural damage, and not too much flooding of residences. Now, when you get over to Hancock County, the report is that there are going to be several hundred Mississippians whose homes will not be able to be occupied for quite some time because of flooding. Supervisor Rocky Pullman reported that as of 2 this afternoon, the water was still rising in Hancock County. There will be some issues there for us to look at with regard to contamination, possibly of well water, and we'll be asking for cooperation from the State Department of Health on that. But clearly, Hancock County is the county that again bore the brunt of this. With regard to our shelters, as the governor said, there are 107 shelters statewide. Mississippians, as might be expected of the most generous state in the nation, are responding very admirably. Our church, First Baptist Church of Tupelo, with my Aunt Norma, who's a friend of the governor's, as food director, is cooking spaghetti for 600 tonight in the Bancorp South Center in Tupelo, Mississippi. And Mississippians are responding as you would expect them to. In Minnesota, Mississippians are on the floor of the convention and in hurricane centers making calls, and I understand more than $1 million has already been raised this afternoon at the convention for relief. With regard to my office, my two offices on the coast, I can say that my Pascagoula office will be open for business as usual at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning, and as soon as I can let you know, I'll know about the Harrison County office. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob. Commissioner Shaney, you want to talk a minute about insurance?
Thank you, Governor. The insurance office on the coast will be open at 8 a.m. in the morning. I would remind consumers, and especially those folks that live in manufactured homes or Katrina cottages, do not cut your butane on until it has been checked by your gas supplier. We will have teams in place Wednesday for any claims on wind and flood insurance, not only on the coast but throughout the state. All the major carriers, Nationwide, Allstate, all of them are here this time to handle claims, including Lloyd's of London. Lloyd's has a group here to handle all of the commercial business, so we're prepared to start Wednesday with claims. Talk to your local agent. Be safe when you go back home. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Now, let me just say, the emergency operations people asked the insurance department to have the companies wait till Wednesday because we don't want people rushing back down before they ought to be there because they think they got to meet with their insurance company. The insurance companies are going to be available starting Wednesday, and hopefully it'll make sense for people to go back on Wednesday. Any questions?
Governor, despite the damage that we have had, when you look back to Sunday at the storm we could have had and the direction it could have taken, you agree with Senator Wicker that we basically dodged a bullet?
You know, we said we're going to pray for the best and prepare for the worst. We almost got what we prayed for. We didn't quite. This storm is going to significantly affect the lives of several hundred or maybe even some thousand Mississippi families. But if you look at when this storm was about to hit Cuba, and the National Hurricane Center said that with 125-mile-an-hour winds, they did not expect Cuba to degrade the storm, and then it would come out in the Gulf of Mexico and stay out there for 2.5 days and come ashore tomorrow morning, then we could have had a Category 4, and the National Hurricane Center said they expected the storm to become a Category 5 storm at some point while it was in the Gulf. So, A, Cuba knocked the storm back some. B, it went through the Gulf so fast that it did not have time to take advantage of the warm water and re-intensify. And then finally, unlike Katrina and Ivan, it did not tick back to the east in the last 12 hours, which was, of course, the thing we feared the worst. It looks like we got 10 feet or more storm surge at Waveland. Think about if that storm, instead of being 72 miles from New Orleans, had been 52 miles, we'd have probably gotten a 20-foot storm surge at Waveland. And so, yes, sir, I do think we dodged a bullet, though it's not insignificant, the damage that some people have suffered. I do want to congratulate the departments and state government for the roles that they have carried out so well. We were clearly prepared, and people executed very well. In fact, they're still executing very well. We shouldn't lose sight of the fact some bad things are still happening out of this storm. I mean, we could have a spate of tornadoes that occur in southwest Mississippi or even behind the storm. But right now, yeah, it looks like we came out of this a lot better than we could have.
And the local officials also responded.
Yeah, we've had this is a team sport, and the cooperation between the locals, the state, and the federal, and the locals are still on the ground, requiring very little assistance. You know, one of the things in our meeting earlier, we were having a hard time finding out about search and rescue, and one of the reasons is the locals in most places hadn't asked for any help because they're able to do it themselves. Ma'am?
Yes, you transported evacuees on JPS buses to the Coliseum, and so how are you going to get them back since school is starting tomorrow?
Commercial buses or commercial vehicles.
Governor, you talked about the fact that taxpayers won't have to bail out individual homeowners because most of those folks are covered. But what about the public infrastructure, the roads and the government buildings that are damaged? Will you be allowed to apply for new FEMA aid?
Absolutely, absolutely. To the degree that the damage is caused by this storm, if the president makes an emergency or disaster declaration, then the damage caused by this storm will be covered. You're going to see there's some projects on the coast that are in the process of being rebuilt and are going to be damaged. And so the government will work with the insurance people and the government people to determine how much is attributable to this storm, and then under the federal law, that money will be made available as public assistance for building. There's going to be some of that. And there'll be some individual assistance. You're going to have some people who lost the contents of their homes that weren't insured. That while the FEMA cottage in which, the Mississippi cottage in which they're living was insured by the state because the state owns it, they may not have insured their furniture, and we're going to ask the federal government to help those people with their personal property claim just like they did for Katrina, and there's no reason it shouldn't be acted on just like Katrina. Melissa?
Governor, I know that people are breathing a sigh of relief, and we all are on the coast, but there are 2 more named storms out there. This is the biggest, the most active time. People are tired and they are storm weary. What do you tell them to keep that momentum up, to keep them prepared for the next one that might?
Well, there are 2 more named storms. Hannah, which is sitting east of Florida. The current projections are that it's going to go up the East Coast, up the Florida coast, and into maybe the Carolinas. We're going to keep an eye on it. We're not going to take that for granted. But I think the storm that's more worrisome for us is Ike. It's 10 days out or so, but the track that is being projected by the Weather Service looks like it's going to run right straight at Cuba, just an almost due west path to come around Cuba and to enter the Gulf of Mexico. Now, of course, that gives us great concern. We'll have to see. That it can run up to Nova Scotia before you know it, or it might just peter out. But we're going to keep a close eye on Ike because it's got the makings of the kind of storm that could come into the Gulf of Mexico. And what would I say to people? I would say that the first year Haley Barbour was governor, we had this bad storm out in the Gulf called Ivan. And people boarded up and evacuated, and right at the last, Ivan turned to the east, and instead of coming in at Biloxi Bay, it came in east of Mobile Bay. It was a terrifically bad hurricane. It just missed us. Then there was Dennis the next year. Dennis was a Category 5 storm in the Gulf of Mexico, and it went way east of us and kind of ran out of gas. But people boarded up, evacuated, so when Katrina was out in the Gulf of Mexico, a lot of people said, man, I boarded up twice, I evacuated twice, I got hurricane fatigue. Well, we saw with Katrina, having hurricane fatigue is something you can't have if you're going to protect your life and your family and your property. And I hope Ike runs into somewhere else, a long way away from here. But if it gets in the Gulf, and if we're in the cone of uncertainty, then we're going to ask people to prepare, and we're going to do everything to get them to prepare, working with the local people. And the state's going to be prepared just like we were prepared today, because these are things, as Katrina proved to us, you can't have fatigue. You got to take them seriously, and we're going to take it seriously. Ma'am?
Governor, can you tell me, looking back on the response to this storm, is there anything that could possibly be done differently?
We'll know better in a few days when we really can look back and see. We're still in the middle of this thing, and we've got people separation. Partners have been very good to work with, and the local governments are better attuned. But why? And of course, this time the public. This hurricane as serious as a heart attack, because
but I don't know any of the impact on the oil rigs outside of the Gulf, and maybe how that might affect gas prices in the future, especially with weather.
don't know. One piece of good news is that continue to operate, but we don't know how many refineries in Louisiana and Texas will close down. There's a potential to lose 2 million barrels a day of refining capacity just between here and Port Arthur and Beaumont, Texas. Don't know